This is a conversation about money.
Do I have enough money to stop working? That's what people ask me all the time. And I don't know. But it's pretty easy to figure out. It's not as complicated as these financial advisors make it. They just seem to confuse things with useless information like historical charts about the stock market and investing. It seems financial people are perfectly willing to tell you what happened yesterday, but nobody wants to tell you what happens tomorrow because they don't know. They just can't predict the future. You know, if stocks go up 10% a year over the next 10 years, you'll have 100% more money. Anybody could tell you that. Nobody knows what's actually going to happen there. So let's do a little drawing about what's actually needed. I'm going to do one, and on what I think you need. It's my opinion. I'm not certified in any way, but I'm taking care of myself, and I think it's worth sharing because of the confusion that's out there. So let me draw this out. There are gaps, but look, I'm coming from the heart. You know, this is well-intentioned. It's not. So in my opinion, you need to have a budget. Without a budget, you don't know where you're going. You don't know what your overhead is. You don't know all that. Another good thing is you need to get rid of all debt. You know, that's not easy. It wasn't easy for me. It's not easy for anybody, but you need to get rid of all debt. It's hard to do, but you need to pick a day that you're going to die, or an age you're going to live to. I'm just going to call it death. I picked 95 because my friend lived to be 95. And from that you can get your days to live, number of years you're going to live, times the 365 gives you the days you're going to live. I'll just use 10,000. Okay? And from that you can divide how much money you've got, or how much money you're going to have, or whatever. You can divide that into the number of days. You can mix in Social Security, and you can figure out how much money you're going to have and what kind of a life you're going to have looking forward, right? It's not written in stone. There's a lot of variables, but let's start somewhere, because financial planners give you a bunch of BS with nothing you can sink your teeth into. At least these numbers you can sink your teeth into today and say, yeah, they make sense today. Tomorrow, well, some things are going to change. On the positive side, after you've got your budget and all that running, you may have Social Security coming. I would say wait till age 70 if you have any brains. If possible. You may be in a situation where you can't do that, but I would say try. You're going to have Medicare. And that's dependent on how much money you make. It's a good thing to figure that out, what your income bracket's going to be. You may have supplemental insurance. It's a good idea to know what that is. Good to know how much these numbers are. You're going to have tax, okay? Tax is a big one. Depending how much money you make, Social Security might be taxed. Depending how much money you make, Medicare is going to go up. It's almost like being taxed. Same with supplemental. You might pay more for that if you make more money. So tax figures in pretty good. I think if you make over $35,000 or $40,000, your Social Security might be taxed. You need to look these numbers up, but they're pretty important. If you have an IRA or a 401k, they're going to be taxed. All these things are going to be taxed, or could be taxed. And you're probably going to have some, maybe some cash, maybe some investments. And you're going to have to make a few assumptions about those cash. You may know, if you're getting interest, you may know what that amount's going to be per year. Investments, somewhat of a crapshoot. Nobody can tell you. You know, you may have a home, real estate. You know, you may have money wrapped up in that. You should not have a mortgage when you're going into retirement. And all these things, every one of them adds up into you. Right? And out of that, once you balance it all out, you're going to have how you can live. And key in that, for me, what kept me going when I was working was I wanted to have fun money. Fun money is what's left after you pay for everything. And you know, it's responsible living, it's not living beyond your means. It tells you how you're going to be able to live and what you're going to be able to do. And in my case, it allows me to travel and to do things. So those are a couple of the variables that go into this. You know, there's a lot more off this paper plate, right? There's a lot on my plate here, but there's a lot more that goes into this. But you know that. You know what goes in here. And only you can know that. If you have child support, if you have alimony, if you have, you know, medical blah blah, you know, it goes on and on and on. And you know, please don't ping me and say, you know, Cosmo, it was easy for you. You started at the top, you worked your way up. Nonsense. I started at the bottom. In 1999, I got rid of a last mortgage. I invested in real estate. I didn't do well. I invested in stocks. I didn't do well. In 1999, I had zero savings. I paid off all debt and moved forward from there. And now I'm living fat and happy. I mean, you know, in a modest way, right? I got a Teardrop trailer. I wouldn't call it, you know, that much of a luxury lifestyle. So let's just go over the key points quickly. How much money you've got, your budget. That's how much money it costs you to live or save or whatever. Days to live. Key. If you don't know how long you're going to live, you have to make an assumption. Pick 95. You know, people are living longer these days. Those couple of things here should be. And just take the days, the money you've got, divide it by the days you're going to live, and that tells you what you're going to have. So that's my paper plate budgeting here, and I hope it helps. You know, you can tell me I'm crazy or whatever, but I'd like to see what you want to put on the table that we can look at today that makes any kind of sense. It's reasonable to live to 95 these days. If you live a clean life, you know, you don't eat a lot of sugar, you don't drink like a fish, and you don't, you know, you're not reckless, you're off the opioids. It's possible. My best friend just died at age 96. So I'm going to just use that. If you're 45, you've got, you know, you've got 50 years to get to 96, 95. So if you have $1 million and you're age 45, and you divide it by 50, that's $20,000 a year you have to live. That's it. Can you live on that? You have a budget. You know how much it costs you to live, right? It's probably not likely. If you're age 65 and you have $1 million and you have to get to 95, it's 30 years. That's $33,000 a year. Is that enough for you to live on? I don't know. Well, you might say Social Security is going to kick in. Okay. At whatever age you're going to collect Social Security, add it to the amount. If you're going to get $35,000 and you're getting 33 because you have that much money saved, well, that's 60, $8,000 a year. You could probably live on that, you know, and how much fun you could have. You might even have money left over, fun money, to go have fun. So it's that simple, you know. That's a good starting place. Your investments, your 401k, your IRA, the taxes, and all that you have to deduct from that, you can figure all of that out pretty easily. You know, if you have $100,000 in an IRA and you're going to pay 25% tax, well, you're only going to get $75,000, and add that in, divide it up, and, you know, it's always how long you have to live and how much money you have. It's that simple. You know, wealth is how much money you have. It's not how much money you earn, it's how much money you have. So in my case, I accumulated wealth. I saved. I had a good job. I worked my ass off, and I saved. Now, I still enjoyed my life, but I put a lot of effort into keeping my job. I outworked everybody I worked with just to keep my job in a very competitive IT environment. But I sought the help of financial planners to try and project what I was going to have. And I'll tell you, it's like these guys have a Ouija board. If the barometric pressure is here and the humidity is here, you'll have this much money as a rosy chart. I mean, I've never seen anybody more full of bullshit than financial advisors. You know, let's look at the S&P 500. Let's look at the Dow. Well, you know, you remember in 2008, you know, the Dow is here, and in 1920, and now it's up here. What about the companies they yanked out of the Dow and they're doing bad? It's pretty easy to get a rosy chart when somebody like Kraft Food, General Motors, General Electric, the guys who are going in a tank, they pull out of the Dow, they stick in the winners, and you always have a winning chart. Now, they're not supposed to use those statistics in financial planning, but they always come up. They always tell you about the rosy history. So psychologically, they're giving you the good news, right? It's like this medication will cause you to have flatulence. But they show you a picture of, you know, people running through the meadow, and they distract you. You know, don't look over there, look over here. So they couldn't tell me jack crap when I asked them for specific numbers of how much money I would have when I was going to retire. But you can do what I did and get a baseline of numbers. Now, this is not the answer, but it gives you the baseline of what you need to know on if you can retire. So one of the things you have to have is you have to have a budget. You have to know how much it costs you to live. If you don't know that, then you don't know. You can't be serious about stopping work. So if your overhead is $35,000, that's what you need. And if your overhead is $48,000, then that's what you need. So you need to know that. You need to know your outgo. And once you know that, you need to know how long you're going to live. So my audience is typically age 45 to 65. I do have younger people. It's typically male. I have women. I wish I could get more women to watch. I get more every year, but it's not as high as the men. In that age group, 45 to 65, you start thinking about when you want to stop work. You've had enough. You've had it up to here. You just want to get out of there. So let's make it easy. If you're 65 and you think you're going to live to be 95, it's roughly 11,000 days, but I'll make it down to 10,000 days you're going to live. Now, if you have $10,000 saved, you're going to have $1 a day to spend. So the point here is pick a number, any number, what you think you're going to live to be, then get your money and divide it by the number of days you're going to live, and you're going to have your daily spending. You're going to have how much money you can spend a day. And if you combine that with your budget, if your budget is $10,000 a year, and you have $10,000 a year from, you know, your cash, well, you're going to have $1 a day to spend. And if that's what it costs you to live, if that's what your budget is, you're not going to have too much fun money. So I was all about fun money. At some point you hit a break-even point where the money you have saved is going to equal the amount of money you need to live based on today's data. And the longer you work, the more you'll have fun money. This is fun money. So my point here is you can easily figure out how many days you're going to live and how much money you've got and get a baseline. Now, there are other things you need to bake into that baseline. You may invest some of that money, and you may have a realistic opinion on how much money you can earn from that investment. The money you have may be taxed if you have it in a 401k. So if you have $10,000 in a 401k and you're going to pay 25% tax, state and federal combined, you may only get $7,500 out of that $10,000 you have in your 401k. So you can bake that in too, right? You get your baseline of the amount of money you have divided by the number of days. It gives you a number, whether it's good or bad. You need to know it. And you get your budget. Put those two things together, you start to see if you're above or below the fun money line, the survival line, and then the fun money line. And then you add into that your other variables. You know the variables better than anybody else, and you can figure them out. It's not as complicated as financial advisors make it. You have reliable data. There are variables that can come up in the future that the financial planner can't bank on, and neither can you. But you have strategies. If you live in a high cost of living area, you could go to a low cost of living area. I don't have to do that. I'm set. I baked my retirement cake. I'm an executor of an estate, but I baked my retirement cake before anybody died or left me anything. And I will have icing on my cake from a dear friend, and I'm really happy about that. And I love that guy. He's just a best friend, and I miss him. I'd give it all just to have him back for a day. But I had to bake my retirement cake, and you have to bake yours. When you start to build your financial picture, you may have cash. You may have Social Security coming at age 62. Everybody I know who dipped into Social Security at age 62, I have several friends who've done this, 100% of them say they're sorry they did that, across the board, because you get a reduction in the amount of money you can get. At my age group, 66, if you could, that's full Social Security, and then there's above that at age 70, you get maximum by delaying. So that's a substantial difference. And in my case, I have cash, I have money, I don't have to worry, so I'm going to collect at age 70. People say, what if you die? Well, if I die, I'm dead. It's not going to make any difference. But if I'm alive at age 70, I'm going to welcome that extra money I get. It's going to be in the 45K range, whereas I would have gotten like 35K if I collect at an earlier age. So for me, it paid. You have to figure it out for yourself. You may be desperate. You may need cancer treatment. You have to take the money sooner. What do I know? So you may have a 401k. Remember, that's taxable. You may have an IRA. Remember, that's taxable. You have to calculate tax in. You may have supplemental income, from other investments and things. You can figure that out too. That'll be taxable. So once you get into retirement, you at age 65, where most people work to 65 to get Medicare, because Medicare is a lot better and a lot cheaper than private insurance. I don't care. I'm a receiver of this. I'm a recipient. Medicare blows away. Medicare is really good. Medicare blows away private insurance in most cases. But it's when you do retire, Medicare is a lot like a tax bracket. If you make $10,000 a year, you pay almost no tax. If you make $500,000 a year, you're going to pay a lot of tax. Medicare is based on that income, and there are tables you can look up for your income bracket. If you make $85K a year or less, you might pay $135 a month for Medicare. If you make $200,000 a year, you'll pay substantially more. I'll try and find a table and display it. But you need to look that up, because your cost of living in retirement is Medicare is going to factor into that, and you'll have supplemental insurance for things Medicare doesn't pay for. There's other things. Now, you know, it sounds like a big picture, but when you write these down and you break them into small pieces, they're pretty easy to control and pretty easy to balance out. You're going to use a financial planner. The first question you should ask is, are you a fiduciary? A fiduciary is obligated to watch out for your best interest. If they're not a fiduciary and you're working with them, you deserve what you get. Okay? You're going to get, the potential is there to be screwed, and most of these guys aren't fiduciaries. And key in all this is your budget and your days to live. With that, you can calculate a lot of the rest. And I use this method, and I knew what day I could pull the ripcord. And so far it's working out. What I did was I took all my variables, I took all this stuff, right? I took all that, and I put it into a spreadsheet. I'm pretty good with a spreadsheet, Excel. I baked it in there. I baked in everything. I baked in income, days to live, taxes, Medicare, tiers, you know, brackets, income brackets, tax. I just tied it, you know, it took a couple of years to do that, but I got it all baked in there. Little by little, I put in more and more and more. And now, if I spend $100 today, I can see how that will affect me at age 96, 95. I can tell, you know, how things are going to affect me. If something in my life goes up, well, that would reduce down my fund money, right? My income, my self-support would go up, my budget would go up, and that might reduce down my fund money. I might have to adjust my life now, but it would save me later. I wouldn't overspend now and have no money later. And more importantly, I wouldn't underspend now and go to the grave a rich man. So I don't want to be the richest guy in the cemetery. I want to spend as much as possible, but no more. So it works in two ways. For me, this whole thing is working really good. It may not work for you. Maybe garbage. You may say this is, oh, you know, there's got a lot of loopholes here. That's okay. It's what I'm using, and it's working just fine. I'm almost 2 years into it now. I'm 2 years into I'm about a year and a half into not working. However, I used this system as I was saving and collecting money and compiling it, and, you know, and doing various things. And it kept me going, and it showed, you know, the growth of my money, and it showed, I knew in advance a date that I'd be able to stop working. I was able to predict. So if you're in your 40s or something, you start working on this now, you'll have a date right now that you can predict when you're going to have enough money. And based on your budget, you know, or future budget, and based on how much money you can predict you're going to have by then, because you're the one who's saving, you're in control there. If you're doing some kind of investments, it may not be as easy, but you know, if you're paying down a mortgage, you can factor that in when that's paid off. There's just so many variables you can bake into this. But I used it as a lead up. I started it probably at age 45 or 50, and, you know, it started off as a real simple spreadsheet, and then I baked in all this other stuff, and got better at it, and have it finely tuned now. This spreadsheet wouldn't help anybody else. Don't ask me for it. It's just too complicated for you to understand. But I understand it. So it's a good investment in yourself. I would start a spreadsheet, or on paper, just a piece of paper, and start baking this stuff in. Keep it green, keep it current, and you'll have a great understanding of where you are, the world, and your place in it. I'm aware that it's not going to be good news for some people. I can't control that. I can't control what's happened in your life. I can't control how much good fortune you've had or bad fortune. I can't control your health. I can't control all those things. But if you're serious about wanting to know when you can stop work, these few parameters can help you quite a bit just to get those on a table. Just make a little drawing, and you can get a pretty good idea of what's needed. Temperatures dropped quite a bit. It's really cooled off. It's been in the high 80s all day, and very humid, so this is a welcome relief. So if hanging out here in the rain isn't your idea of fun, when you want a cup of tea, you got to dash out here, get under the lid, and make some tea. Now, if this is not your idea of fun, then maybe you don't need a teardrop trailer. Maybe you need something bigger, you know, where you're inside of it and all that. Me, I love this kind of stuff. I love weather. I love adversity. I take care of how I'm prepared. I take care of how I'm prepared. You know, I know what I'm expecting. I've been camping my whole life. And while I'm a proponent of this, I think this is a great lifestyle. I realize it's not for everybody. I know that for sure. And, you know, I'm just providing information. When I got my teardrop trailer, there wasn't much information around on what it's all about, how to camp, you know, what to do, what's it like, you know. So I wanted to answer those questions for people, and that's why I make these videos. And it's fun, you know, it's an expression. But, you know, you want to know what to expect. And now there's plenty of information available from me and from other people. So I hope you'll pick what's right for you.